Greetings. Welcome to another Komodo community podcast. I'm E. Giuliano here today with Oink and Santos the Great from Verus Coin. Very excited today to talk with Oink and Santos. Hopefully we're going to give you a nice conversation outlining and describing Verus, and yeah, just from there, why don't we just quickly introduce ourselves? Oink, say hi, and just tell us how you came to Verus and what you're doing these days.
Okay, I'll say hi, as requested. Yeah, I'm Oink. I came into the Verus community in January 2019, and basically I've been looking for something to mine. Before that, I had predominantly been donating my CPU power to projects like, well, anything at home, hashing at home, SETI at home, whatever, just for the good cause. And there was a point when they started rewarding that with some crypto. So I said to myself, well, if I'm getting crypto, maybe I should get into a project that really suits me. So I've been looking around. I've been checking out GPU mineable coins, been mining a lot of with my GPU, actually still am. And then I had a CPU sitting idle. I was looking around, checked out Monero, checked out some other coins, and ran into Verus. And basically when I read the vision paper, I was sold, completely blown away and completely sold. I've been there ever since. Yeah, and I'm basically mainly helping other people to get started, to solve issues, to overcome hurdles, basically explaining. And as I'm a very lazy fellow, I try to document everything that I have to explain twice.
Okay,
so I can simply refer to them. Yeah,
that's helpful. Okay, well, great. And yeah, Oink, very helpful, and we look forward to talking a little bit more about Verus coming up. First, we'll say hi also to Santos. Hi, Santos, and why don't you give us a similar rundown?
Alrighty. Hello, my name's Santos. You can call me Sean. I've been with Verus, I believe it was May of 2019. Got involved by, I don't know if you know Lutz from Pirate, from Firechain.
Shout out to Lutz, yeah.
Shout out to Lutz. He actually got me on board with Verus. He says, hey, you might want to take a look. Took a look at it, and after I, just like Oink, read the white paper, looked at the development team, saw, like Mike Tungi and, JL777 on the project, fair launch. I was like, let me put my hat in the arena here, and come to find out, by popular choice, I got picked to be the voice of Verus. So if you were watching any of our videos, I'm generally the voiceover for it. But we have a great team of people behind us, writers, researchers. Hell, one of our more enthusiastic developers that likes to go off on his own little projects. I think he's only 16, but he's a bit of a savant when it comes to just hardware and coding and doing what he does. As far as what I'm doing right now, I'm actually working on one of our voiceovers right now. We had to do a little bit of revision to it. So I've got that after work today to finish up and send in, but you should see, I think it's our fifth promotional video that we've put together, with more in the works. We're just waiting for a couple of OKs and reviews from Mike, but he's deep in code right now, so we don't try to bother him when he's gotten into the groove. But other than that, it's just exciting to see what's coming about, and we have major corporate, not corporations, but major companies signing on and starting to work and organize a lot of their software with Verus, which is fantastic to actually see use case come out of it. We don't have an exact date, but we got mainnet coming up pretty soon, which will be absolute paradigm shifting for how you'll be able to transact and trade and conduct business through cryptocurrency. So that's kind of where I'm sitting, and back to you.
Perfect. Yeah, and we'll definitely get into that a bit more. You mentioned the development side of things. Anybody who wants to find out a bit more specifics will have to go and just dig a little bit, but I'm sure there's plenty there to see who is behind this, working on this. It's quite high level work for sure. And the one thing that I wanted to highlight, and that's, we have both of you here today, is the really strong community surrounding Verus, and which comprises Verus really. Super solid, organic, ground up type of community, putting together some really excellent materials. You mentioned a little bit about that, and so I just wanted to commend that aspect of it. Did you want to speak a little bit word about the community, and then we'll move on more specifically to Verus itself?
All right. Actually, I think Oink would. He's been around the community a little bit longer than I have, and could probably tell you a little bit more of the ins and outs of who's working with what.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the community is the community, and Verus is the community. Basically, it's all community driven, and every now and then you have to step in when people get into fierce discussions over trivial things. But that's no different than any other community. Lately we did have to specify a couple of topics really off topic, because they had the potential to split the community into opposing camps, which had nothing to do with Verus or crypto for that matter. So we just simply said, okay, you have an opinion, that's nice for you. You want to voice an opinion, we're absolutely fine with that. But Verus is not the platform to do that. So we actually, and that's just to try to keep everyone's nose pointed at the same direction. Because if you have any subject that's where people feel strong about, and they have to work together in the community. So it's no use of having people getting so wound up that they can't work together anymore.
Nice. Well, I think I wanted to highlight the fact that Verus Coin to me and community represents what Komodo has created, in the sense that it became an opportunity to create independent, autonomous asset chains, let's say, and communities that would carry those forward. And I think that Verus is a shining example of that potential of Komodo, because of how, now of course Verus is in a unique position because of the development talents and skills that are there. So it definitely took advantage in those types of ways. But having said that, I see Verus as this growing baby that was created in the Komodo ecosystem, and is now really independent, autonomous, yet at the same time, still in the same universe or multiverse, ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, ecosystem. Thank you. Yeah. So speaking of which, so you mentioned fair launch, no pre-mine. Speaking of mining, Oink, did you want to mention about the hash? It's a Verus hash, which allows, it's a unique mining opportunity. Did you want to mention about that?
Well, you're asking me about it, so I guess you want to hear about it and your view.
I definitely do. I definitely do.
Yeah. Verus hash has a couple of unique capabilities. One of that is it's only 50% responsible for the blocks it finds, because we have a so-called proof of power, not proof of work or proof of stake. We have proof of power, and Verus hash is an integral part of that. And it uses features that are built into the CPUs nowadays, basically since 2012, 2013 standard on any new CPU. And by using those capabilities, those cryptographic capabilities of a processor, it is very hard to get the same kind of performance on any other hardware. So you can mine Verus with a GPU. It'll just cost a lot more power, more electricity to get to the same hash rate. It can be mined by FPGAs, but after the latest Verus hash upgrade of the algorithm, the FPGA producer, they have tested the bitstream as far as I know, and they said it is not efficient enough for us. It's not profitable enough for us. And that is exactly the point we were trying to reach. We don't want to drive them out, yet we want to have an equal distribution. So
that sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, go ahead.
Well, no, sorry about that. But yeah, it just sounds like Verus is really keeping the power in the hands of the people, so to speak. I did jump ahead of myself. We started talking about the mining, but proof of power really is the overarching, because it offers the mining and the staking as a 50-50 consensus and offering a high level of security that way. And then also on top of that, using Komodo's DPOW, delayed proof of work as well. Am I correct on that one? I believe so. I was reading that. And so with the mining side of it, you even see already opportunity to mine on a phone. It might not be the best quality at this time, but do you see in the future people mining Verus on their phone, and then also staking and all that stuff? Who wants to talk about that?
Santos, go ahead. Santos, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Funny enough, actually, we currently have, I want to say, 2 stable APKs. It's named Verus Miner 9000, I think is what it's called. But it's it utilizes, I believe it, I think it's only for Android. I don't know if if he's done an iPhone or an Apple version of it yet, but I know I was actually playing around with it 2 nights ago. But yeah, no Apple yet. Just the APK for Android. But as far as I know, I think like certain Samsung phones with octa-cores in them are getting anywhere between what 3 or 4 hash.
I've seen reports of 5 to 8 megahash per second,
which isn't bad. You know, I've got an Intel i3
keep up with
that maybe I have an Intel i3 that pushes maybe 8, 9 hash. So like for a cell phone, that's pretty decent, especially if you think about, you know, power consumption versus your hash rate. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, the power consumption is one thing, because the batteries can't keep up with the power consumption of the processor. So after a while, it does throttle down to 3-4 megahash per second.
All right, and then this is just the beginning of it, and so this is something which will continue to work itself out as we move closer and closer and further into Verus' life.
I see it as a possibility for people that do not have PCs at home. There are vast regions of the world where if you have internet, that's only on your phone. So one block reward of 12 Verus Coin at the moment would be a week's wages or even more in certain regions.
This is very true.
So if you can do that on your phone, it basically unlocks Verus or blockchain in general to a much larger part of the world as where it is right now.
Indeed, that's very spectacular. Yes, and that's why I wanted to talk about that, and also the ideas of weak subjectivity and nothing at stake. Did you want to just briefly talk about that? That's part of the problem that the proof of power helps to solve.
Yes, indeed. The proof of power mechanism or consensus mechanism basically includes nothing at stake. And that means that you basically have no incentive to cheat, because we have a cheat guard in our wallet, and anyone with a native wallet can put in their own Z address as cheat guard address. And if your wallet detects someone staking from multiple wallets, from multiple nodes on the same address, it simply confiscates the reward. The one trying to cheat to gain extra strength, to gain extra rewards, or for whatever motive he's doing that, he basically forfeits his rewards. But it's only his rewards. It's not the amount he's staking with. That is always safe.
Okay.
So basically, if you are staking, a staking transaction is basically a transaction to yourself, just like Komodo with the activity reward.
Okay.
It is a transaction to itself, and then it gets a coin-based reward. And making use of originally the Antera module, no, not the Antera modules, the consensus modules from Komodo. There was a smart transaction created that if two separate entries of the same address are trying to claim the same block reward, it simply forfeits the reward to the first one that sees it.
Okay. And it also deals with weak subjectivity. These are two problems I'm not very familiar with. That's, if you have anything to say about that, that's fine. If not, we can move on.
Yeah, weak subjectivity, it's not my strong point as well. What basically happens if what you can imagine that on one end of the network and on the other end of the network, two nodes, two wallets find a solution, and they get put on a blockchain. The consensus model sorts out which one is the best and rolls back. So it's always the strongest chain, and it's always based on consensus.
Okay. We don't have to go too deeply into that. I mean, anybody who really wants to know further about those problems can look into it and find out what those problems are and see how Verus solves them. There is a lot of good documentation that anybody wants to read about Verus. The website is phenomenal. You just go in there and it's very easy to navigate. And so, yeah. Now, I did want to ask, I wanted to mention about the wallet, because it seems like this wallet is this focal point right now for Verus, where then you're going to launch into all these opportunities. Firstly, it's a multi-coin wallet, which is pretty cool. You can throw in all kinds of different currencies. There are a lot of obscure ones in the list, but there are definitely popular ones in there, two common ones. Do you know, oh, and also you can, there's a light mode and a native mode, so you can do both of those. So that's helpful too, for example, because you have zero knowledge privacy capabilities as well. So that, for example, you can store Pirate R on the wallet and in its native form there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And then you can also do Z to Z or T to Z or Z to T transactions of Verus as well, right? Is that correct? Awesome. Did you want to say anything specific about the privacy aspect or those features? Or did you want to mention anything about the wallet itself that you would like to highlight at this time?
As far as the because it'll definitely make a whole lot more sense once PBaaS is fully running and launched. But being able to go in and track and see and commit for IDs and names right now, yeah, the only way I can kind of describe it is like when the .com boom had begun, everybody was buying up or just buying names to do something with them, which is nice. So it's like if you own, say, the name Smith. Right. Once PBaaS is started up, you'll be able to run subchains of, say, Steve.Smith at, VerusID at, and so that can be your primary address for almost anything.
Okay, perfect. So we're getting into it now. So now we're coming to the IDs, the Verus IDs. Can you take us to just the beginning of that and give us a quick overview of it, and then we can go into some of the opportunities that it unlocks, kind of like what you were just mentioning.
Let's see. As far as the IDs themselves go, it gives you an opportunity to have a digital version of yourself without releasing any other information that you don't want to release. So it just depends on whether or not you have not users, but not a user base, but say a store, like stores, hospitals, stuff like that. If say you had a PBaaS that specifically was for your name, and you wanted to only show people, yes, I'm RH negative. I have XYZ allergies, but I don't want you to see all of my banking information. You'll be able to share that information with these IDs in future iteration. But you'll be able to, you'll be able to revoke, recover. You have your signatures. Verus Vault features will be pretty sweet actually for setting time locks, for setting up vested trusts and whatnot. But the biggest thing with the ID is, once it's fully fired up, you'll be able to, Oink can correct me, but once everything's fired up, if you were like, hey, can you send me some Bitcoin, instead of having to remember a really long address, you'll be able to just use your ID as a catch-all for all of your crypto.
So basically, your ID is the address where you can store, receive, send, stake your VRSC.
VRSC, as far as I think Oink can correct me on this one, but VRSC plus, I think once PBaaS is fully running, I believe you'll be able to catch, you'll be able to stake and run your other currencies as well.
Cool. Yeah. So basically, anything within the Verus ecosystem. Sorry, go ahead, Oink.
Yeah, anything in the Verus ecosystem is about the correct term.
Yep.
Right now, there is an ETH bridge being built. And that would mean that what is that is live, that every ETH token, ERC20 token, can enter the Verus ecosystem and can be stored in your ID.
Understood. Okay, cool. So, and then we'll get to the bridge in a moment. But so that bridging is going to allow people to take whatever tokens they have on the Ethereum chain and convert them into an equivalent in the Verus ecosystem under those PBaaS chains, and then they can use all of the functionalities of Verus, for example, the ID and which includes revoking, recovering, and you guys can talk a bit about that too. And so then so basically they can take all that functionality of Verus, even though they're holding Ethereum.
Yes, indeed. And yeah, basically I'm glad you touched the revoking and recovering part, because it is pretty special, because it's completely self-sovereign. And that actually means that I can assign an authority myself to a different ID. I can own that ID, or I can trust someone else to do it for me, to revoke my identity in case of in case I lose my keys or my wallet gets compromised. And I can also assign an authority to a recovery ID. So I can assign yet another ID the ability to recover my identity. So in effect, what happens if you revoke an ID by using the proper authority for it, no one can do anything with my ID anymore. So if my ID Oink is actually revoked, it cannot send out anything. It cannot do anything. It cannot create transactions. So my funds that are in there are factually frozen. And as soon as I recover, they're safe. It's just like a bank account that gets frozen. You can't do anything with it. And as soon as I recover my ID, I can do a couple of things. I can assign it to different keys. So it's going to get a different public address with a different key from it, preferably uncompromised, of course. And that enables me to start using my ID as if nothing happened. You can compare it to having losing your bank cards. What you do nowadays is do on your telephone, you revoke the bank card and request a new one. But you are depending on the bank to do that for you. That's a third party that requires trust. In this case, you can do everything yourself. So you're fully self-sovereign.
Trustless and self-sovereign. Oh,
yes.
wow. Okay, so you can revoke the ID and meaning your address and all the funds that are in there, you can revoke it from being used by whomever might have it, the compromised
yes.
ID, and then you can recover that ID using a different ID basically in place of that, and that's built in, and you can do that through the GUI, and it's basically made easy for you, right? Verus makes everything pretty easy for you as far as I can see.
We try to make it user-friendly, because if it gets complicated, a user won't use it. Usually what you see when security is beefed up, something gets harder to use. And we strive to make it more secure and at the same time easier to use. Imagine that.
Say that again. We lost you for a second there. Say that one more time.
Okay. If you use it in a corporate environment or some kind of communion where you have a departmental budget, you can imagine that somewhere higher up the chain, someone has the recovery and revocation authority. So that if something goes wrong in that department, someone gets fired, etc., they can simply revoke it and reassign it to the new person in charge. You can set up a very powerful and secure way to, one, secure everything in your ID, and that's not just your funds, that's also your data, the data you control yourself. Because people confuse crypto and blockchains with funds. But it's not just funds, it's information. And just like you don't want to have someone else control over your funds, you don't want to have someone else control over your information.
So then with the revoking and recovering, it's relating to the signatures as well?
Yes, indeed. Because if you sign a binary or a text, basically there's only one ID that's able to generate that specific signature, and that's the ID.
Okay.
If I revoke my ID, it will. I've actually never tested that. I need to test that if then that signature is still valid, but I do think so, because when it was signed, the ID was valid.
Right. Okay.
You can check. You can when you check those those signatures, you can have it use the very latest information from the blockchain, but you can also work from an offline blockchain as long as that ID existed at the moment you went offline. So if you are in the store and you want to have someone show his age, and you have an attestation with his age and it's signed by an ID, you don't need to have a running note. You can have an offline note for that.
This is awesome, because this really, Verus is really thinking about how to interact and use these technologies in our day-to-day lives in a seamless, well, I don't know about seamless, but in a very integrated way. For example, just one use of the signatures, which I found interesting, is the Verus Foundation has a signature on the wallet in order to authenticate the wallet. I think that's phenomenal. That's so cool. Did you want to mention something about that in relation?
Yeah. Basically, we have other signature services on the internet, and they all go by a year-by-year subscription. And if you don't pay, your subscription does not get prolongated, and you can't sign anymore. A VerusID is a one-time purchase. It is yours. It will stay yours. It's self-sovereign. Unless you sign it over to someone else, it's still yours. And with that, you can just keep on signing with the same ID.
Cool.
So there's no hidden costs. Yeah,
great. Anybody who wants to get an ID right now, as long as it's not already taken, can go and get an ID right now. They can open up the wallet and set it up, and they can even do it through the GUI. They don't have to do it on a command line, or is it currently only command line?
No, you can access it and create IDs right through.
No, that's fully supported in Ethereum.
Amazing. All you need is a little bit of VRSC in the wallet in order to make that happen. You basically have to pay for it in VRSC. Is that the idea?
Yes.
Perfect.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Hopefully some people will go try that out for sure.
Okay. Let me address one thing that will probably pop up later on. And we've seen that in Discord already. The price of Verus Coin, the price of an ID is 100 Verus Coin, which is depending. Yeah. Some say it's expensive, but if you see if it's for life or even beyond that, it's actually nothing.
And if you
every PBaaS chain, every PBaaS chain that follows will have the ability to spin up an ID system under that PBaaS chain. So if I spin up, and that's what Santos earlier said, if I spin up a PBaaS chain called Oink, then you could register there for a price that I determine because I spin up the chain for say 1 Oink. You can get ejuliano.oink at, which is just as valid as any other one.
Cool. And actually, you mentioned something interesting is that if you get an ID address, there are sub addresses which can be created based on that root address. Is that correct? So you buy the address, but then other people might want the sub addresses related.
It'd be
to
like
that
if I owned the ID Smith, but your name was John Smith or Mike Smith, you'd be able to buy an ID through me at a much reduced cost and have John Smith.VRSE at.
Cool. Well, let's see how that goes. This is just the beginnings, and it's already pretty exciting to me to think about the potentials that these bring. So unless you have any other last comments about the IDs, you started talking. Okay, good. Please do. Yes.
I wasn't. No. I wasn't nearly finished yet.
Good.
One of the powerful things of an ID, it can be multi-sig.
Okay.
So I can create an ID that has 3 primary addresses, so to speak.
Tell us why that's important. Tell us why that's powerful, why that's important.
Why that is important. For example, I die and I got 2 children and I've got an attorney that has my will. What I do is put one of these addresses in the will of the revocation authority. That's, for example, a multi-sig ID, the revocation one. And my kids each have 1. So they can only come together with my attorney that has my will and my kids to revoke my ID. And then I can do the same for the recovery authority. And then they can together recover my ID and access my funds when I'm no longer there.
Wow.
So an exchange where the CEO passes away and no one has the keys. Sounds familiar, I think. That will be impossible with VerusID if they set it up right.
Cool. Yes.
You can create a VerusID as a department ID with a budget in it. And if 2 out of 3, for example, agree with what to spend it on, they can spend it. If you set a 2 out of 3 multi-sig.
And the beauty of this is that it's going to be available on all the PBaaS chains as well.
Indeed.
Wow. And we will. So, did you want to say anything further about that? About the ID aspect?
We haven't talked about the Verus Vault feature yet.
Oh, okay, great. He'll help me understand Verus Vault. Help me understand that, why it's helpful and how it works.
Verus Vault can do two things. It can put a delay on unlocking your vault. When it is in vault mode, so to speak, you cannot spend anything from your ID.
So it's protected in a way.
It is protected. The only thing it can do is stake, which is a transaction to itself. That's
Okay.
the only thing it can do, but it cannot send funds out.
Okay.
And you can do two things. You can put a time delay on it. So when you unlock, you have to amount a preset amount of blocks that you specify. For example, 60 blocks, roughly an hour.
Okay.
Or you can say, okay, I set up an ID for my kids. I make it a college fund. I deposit in it every month, and it will not unlock until block at his 21st birthday or whenever.
Nice.
In emergencies, you can always revoke the ID, and that will override the lock.
Oh,
so after revocation and recovery, you can still access it for emergencies. But basically, what you can do is you don't need a hardware wallet anymore, because you put a time lock on it if you have a lot of funds in your ID. Put a hardware delay, put a unlock delay on it for 24 hours. Someone tries to unlock your ID, you can see that on the chain. So you can revoke it.
Okay.
So why would you need why would you need to buy something if that's in there and it's for free? Once you have an ID, you have the functionality.
Incredible. And then, okay, so we're slowly moving towards the PBaaS, because that's really going to open up a lot of opportunity when you have the bridges that will just connect it in a way where, again, people can use the functionality, this type of functionality, even though they're an Ethereum user holder. Okay. We went through that's why this ID stuff is really key. It's quite incredible, actually, in my mind. That's why I'm glad that we went in it pretty thoroughly. Okay, so now we start talking about DeFi and the PBaaS. I feel like PBaaS is more than just DeFi because of it has all these other uses. So let's talk PBaaS first, and then maybe how that lends itself to the DeFi opportunity. Santos, did you have anything to say about PBaaS? Help us understand what is it.
As far as PBaaS, it's public blockchains as a service. Really, once PBaaS is fully spun up and fired up, things like tokens are a thing of the past. There's no because your PBaaS itself is its own full chain, and you wouldn't need to actually create a token off a main chain anymore. But you'd still have the back and forth from the main chain without requiring any extra anything really. So like, for example, you got Tron, and you got the Tron ecosystem, or Ethereum and the Ethereum ecosystem, which they're not coins, they're tokens of an Ethereum chain.
Right.
So with this, you'd have your own individual chain. You could have a Giuliano chain.
Alrighty.
And then you could have your entire family underneath your chain. So each your kids could each have their own individual blockchains. You know what I mean? You could have a chore. Then from there, you could have a chore coin, or a picked up your bedroom coin, stuff like that. So you can incentivize it and gamify a lot of the.
Can you make a PBaaS chain from a PBaaS chain? Is that the idea? And it can just keep going, or
levels on levels.
So you can just keep nesting them in there and working with them. That's amazing. That's cool. Very, very cool.
That won't be in the first iteration, but that will happen in the future.
That is, yes.
Okay.
I should have put the caveat on there. It's not iteration one, but definitely in the works for the future.
No worries. One step at a time, and it takes time, and I think everybody can appreciate that. And considering the amount of things and the complexity of things that are being built out, there's no question that these things take time, but you can already see what could be coming for us. So with this PBaaS, you have the opportunity to use the whole Verus ecosystem. You mentioned going back and forth. That's where the bridges come in. Is that the idea? Okay, so with PBaaS now, we start having this opportunity for DeFi. With more when I say DeFi, I mean specifically the liquidity pools and automated market makers and all kinds of activity getting locked up. But with the PBaaS system here, and for Verus, we have a few differences that are quite major, and I'll let you describe them. But it also, okay, you because you can make so many chains. Did you want to just quickly mention about the merge mining? Is that of any significance? And did you want to say something about that, Oink? Okay, please do.
Yeah, that's definitely that's definitely very significant, because what you can do with merge mining is you can mine up to 22 chains with the same hash power. So the hash power you put on the Verus main chain, the same power gets just duplicated onto any merge mine chain you're using.
So if you got 20 mega hash on one, you got 20 mega hash on the other.
Without increasing.
Right, understood. Okay, that's mind blowing.
Yeah, that's actually for starting chains is amazing, because they get a very high level of protection, not just from our proof of power consensus, but also from inheriting, so to speak, power from the main chain.
Wow.
And that means that if you start up your chain and you have an X amount of people saying, okay, I'm willing to mine a chain next to my Verus chain, you get instant protection and you are instantly safe. How many small chains get trolled by big miners that put on hash power and then leave, and leaving the chain waiting for its next block for days? I know. Excellent. I know Komodo has other solutions for that, but this is basically you get instant protection.
Yeah, beauty. Very nice. And okay, so now we swing back, unless there's something else to say about that, we'll swing back over to the PBaaS and then how it relates to DeFi through reserve currencies. Santos, did you want to mention something about this fractional reserve currency concept for Verus and PBaaS?
I'm probably gonna butcher this, but I'll give it my best shot. So as far as what Mike has told us, is you have a lot of like, say a new project gets spun up, and then you have like those couple initial investors that are sitting on their coins, and then they're waiting for that little bit of a payday, a bit of a spike up in price, and next thing you know, they dump all of their coins, and it decimates the chain. And a lot of times smaller chains just can't bounce back from that. One of the nice things is when you spin up, say, one of these PBaaS chains, and you put in that certain currency, like, you can probably fill in the blanks on this one, but it basically, you take that little bit of section there, and then that section is like a protected monetary section where you cannot just dump out the whole of the chain. The chain itself, it's basically, it's protecting the chain from being just washed out with early mining. And let's see, with the fraction on this one here, how did he explain that?
Okay, while you think about that, I'm just going to jump in and just mention what I'm understanding about these fractional reserve currencies, Oink, is that it's like a basket. It can be two or more. Is that the idea?
That's the idea indeed. There's one mandatory one, and that's also always the native coin of the chain it is on. So that will be in the beginning. Verus Coin will be always part of any basket.
And now, if let's say, okay, go on. Yes.
Once PBaaS kicks in, and I get an Oink coin, any basket on that chain will contain Oink.
Yes. Okay, that was going to be my question. Thank you. Okay, cool. Okay. Hey, you're way ahead of me. That's good. I appreciate that very much. All right, very interesting. And so this is where the PBaaS and the bridge merges a little bit, because in order to create, let's say, an Ethereum based token for one of these baskets, you need that bridge in order to prove that they are, how do you say, legitimate, right? And are connected. Okay. So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's where the bridges comes in. First thing is going to be an Ethereum bridge, and then in the future we'll have there will be other chain bridges. Cool. Ethereum is the big one, obviously, to try and get going, because it is so involved in the DeFi, this type of DeFi space. When it comes to
add to that.
Yes, please do.
Sorry, I gotta add to that. The bridging system is basically a universal way to do it, because the bridging system can be used for other coins as well, but it's also going to be used to interconnect all the PBaaS chains in future.
Wow. Okay.
And that's So it's basically a unified bridge, and our developer has Mike has dubbed it Alan from from the bridge keeper. Yeah,
yes.
okay, you know what I mean.
No, but maybe
Python for people that don't know. So you're gonna look that up. It's guaranteed for some hilarious moments if you like that kind of humor.
But Alan is something that you could run, and you run Alan, and that will continue. Go on.
It is actually built in. It will be built into the chain, and Alan basically verifies if the incoming transaction is processed right, if it's a valid transaction from the external chain, and if so, it'll let it pass to the ecosystem, and the other way around as well.
Cool.
So it basically checks the validity of. Yeah.
Cool. And there are
it checks the validity of the transaction on both sides. Sorry.
No, that's okay. We keep getting caught up in the tracks here. My fault. But okay, I think I understand what you mean. And this back and forth also is already built in to the initial conversion, isn't it? It's like a back and forth is already taken into consideration in the initial fee.
That is being worked on right now, actually, together with the bridge. It's a smart transaction, which basically goes into one token, goes through a pool, and goes back again. And that has indeed the transaction fee of 0.05% built in, plus the standard transaction fees of 0.0001.
Now, this really is exciting to me. It has a lot of opportunities, and I think maybe it will be good to devote a specific segment or episode to this in a little bit of time once things are starting to get worked out and closer to release. So I would love to have a more in-depth specifics about these. If you guys are cool with that in some near future, awesome. Coming back to it though, you mentioned the PBaaS. So all the PBaaS chains are already, because it's all in a protocol level that these things are being offered, anybody in a PBaaS chain already has that bridging capacity. Is that the idea? Perfect. And then everything, all the external chains are being worked on, for example, with Ethereum at this time. I have a question about Komodo. Do the Komodo and Komodo asset chains already have that capacity bridging, or is that also a separate thing, or are you unaware?
That is, strictly speaking, a separate thing. But since Komodo and Verus are so similar, I would nearly say, how hard can it be?
Okay.
It is
interesting.
It is very.
This last word.
Komodo chain is actually very similar to a PBaaS chain, apart from the fact that they do not have the smart transactions in such a way as Verus has. So there's probably going to be an Antera module or something for that.
Cool. Yeah.
And I don't think we will be the ones developing it, but it would be actually pretty easy. And the thing that GL777 is going to try, I don't know if you are up to speed with that one. He wants to create a VDEX coin, a virtual DEX.
Yes. Right. So,
Yes.
yeah, JL777 is already looking at this as a great opportunity. It seems like, based on what I'm reading from him, he's very keen on it. So I'm sure he's going to be making sure that at least it's going to be there. I will be very surprised if it's not there very early on when it's available. Okay, very cool.
But that's probably not going to be a bridge functionality. That's probably not going to be a bridge functionality what he's doing, because he wants to go one way only. He wants to only go from the DEX coin to the VDEX token. So it's going to be a mint and burn kind of transaction.
I see. But I do believe there will be, I've heard or seen talk about using R and that capacity of going through fractional reserve, coming back, whatever. I think, anyway, it's needless to say, you said why wouldn't it be able to do it? And it seems like it would be very surprising if it's not in the near future. So that's cool. So we're kind of touching on the PBaaS and the bridges, the fractional currencies. How do you see that exploding for Verus? Like what does that bring to Verus, and why is it different, for example, than what's already out there? Did you want to say a couple of words about what is special and unique about this version?
Santos, do you want to have the first?
One thing, like say for example, you're if you wanted to spin up a PBaaS chain and you were a publishing company, right? But you wanted to be able to show, like, okay, this person completed this on this day. I'm not going to publish company. Let's go with, say you do contracts, okay, and you want and you have multiple, and you have, say, 5 different portfolios underneath your business. Your business could then be each of those businesses could be PBaaS chained up. Run on their own, and then you could have your own individual IDs for, say, one of the companies does specifically tracking for PepsiCo. Okay, you'd be able to then QR, if you had QRs on every bottle, or at least on the main packaging form, you'd be able to, you'd have a fully trustless system in order to do inventory and not have to worry about outside interference or corrupt data.
Okay.
That'd be one use case.
Okay. In my Oink, did you want to step in and say something too, or I will?
Yeah, I wanted to add to that.
Please do.
Very specifically on the big advantage of the Verus liquidity system over anything out there. To be honest, anything I'm aware of, let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Let's keep it a bit political. Is that there's no front running, because in the Ethereum ecosystem, every transaction is going to be processed by a virtual machine, and the order in which it is processed is basically determined by the amount of fee you are willing to pay. So you can jump in front of others by paying a high fee, and therefore, if you see a large transaction coming that moves the price, you can put a transaction in front of it and a transaction right after it. It doesn't even have to be your own money; it can be loaned money, and make a profit on that in that way. Now, in the Verus liquidity system, all those transactions are aggregated into a block, and they are processed in parallel. And only if you have coins moving in one way and another set of coins moving in another way, only what's left after that is processed, there is an amount on that side or an amount on that side. Mm-hmm. That is the part that moves the price.
Aha, cool. Yes, that is.
And everyone in that block gets the same price.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. That is huge. That's one of the unique properties that Verus is bringing to this DeFi space, because they're going to cancel out a lot of that volatility. Is that the idea?
Yes.
Is that going to be a bad thing, do you think? Like, isn't part of the draw for a lot of the users is that massive volatility, or do you think it's actually net negative, and in fact this format is way better.
I can imagine that there are people that will see this as a negative because it takes away their possibility to make a quick buck. And yeah, they will perceive that as negative. But from the Verus point of view, it makes it fair for all users on the chain.
It makes it more equitable across the entire chain.
And that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up, because really that seems to me a big part of the principles that Verus brings forward. And I'm hoping that it's coming clear through the different topics we've talked about, that Verus is really about the equitable
the leveling
user.
of the playing field.
Yeah, it really is. And it's really built right into its systems, isn't it?
Yeah, it actually is. It's the mining part is with the CPU mining. The staking is fair. If you have more coins, you have more chance to get a stake, of course. The merge mining gives the little startups a good chance. The end of front running gives everyone a fair chance to convert their coins without being at a loss. It's fair.
Yeah,
and it's the main principle.
Yeah, and truth and privacy for all. That's really strikes me is really what it is, and everyone who's working so hard to bring that out. I commend you all so much, because this is a beautiful thing that's happening. I think we're gonna end it just around now. There's so much more depth to go into, and I really do look forward to doing that in sometime in the near future. But I think we've already gone through so much material just now. They're probably worth it to listen again, because there's just a lot there. Or I would just say, go read the website, go read all the different articles if you're interested to know more. I'll post a bunch of them in the description. Obviously, join Verus Discord. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, you can join our Discord page.
Yep.
Also, if you're looking for good information too, we have a Verus community YouTube page that we've been uploading informationals and breakdowns and whatnot. How are we 51% attack proof? Or hashtag proof. Or we have a couple of different videos that are out there that explain a little bit more into detail of how Verus functions in general. I think those are a good watch. They're only about 2 minutes long a piece. So it's not trying to like overwhelm you with information, but it's at least giving specific, specificities to certain topics that people might have questions for.
Awesome, fantastic. And I did want to also mention, if you don't have a wallet, a Verus desktop wallet, or there's even a mobile, but if you can get the wallet and get that started, you might decide to get an ID. There's also, once these reserve currencies are coming out, you'll be able to make reserve currencies just through the wallet GUI. If you want to play on the testnet, is that also an option right now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, that's also an option. We keep testnet running for people that just want to play around, want to get to know what's out there. And we are close to a new iteration of testnet with more functionality on it. So it will be reset in weeks. I don't know exactly when. Hopefully this year.
Cool.
And then we can, just tag me if you want to have some coins or one of the other testnet runners, and I'll send you a basket.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I hope I didn't miss anything big. Santos, Oink, do you have any last words if I missed something important?
I wanted to, you mentioned the website a couple of times, and it is strangely enough nowadays a Herculean task to get a completely non-tracking website, which we have accomplished.
Oh,
it does not track anything, and the only information it actually converts to another server with if you try to verify your signature or look up an ID, because the ID lookup system is not on the same server, but it is also one of our servers. But that's the only call that ever leaves that server. And
Wow.
it's not even
Yeah,
Pirate
I
has a
didn't
site
believe
that
it
can be
first. I had to
used
test it
without
myself.
cookies.
Sorry, say that one at a
I
time.
did. I didn't trust them at first, but I had to test it out myself. I had a fresh wipe computer, installed Brave browser, and the first website I went to was Verus.io. Exited, restarted it, 0 tracks. I was like, okay, like you guys got
Nice.
me.
Yes.
Nice. A lot of talented people working with Verus all the way around, and I'd like to just acknowledge you all and thank you for joining, specifically Santos the Great and Oink from Verus community. Verus Coin, check it out if you haven't already, and if you're already familiar with it and you've watched this video, I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've gotten something out of it, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks, Santos. Thanks, Oink. Appreciate you both very much. This was done on short notice, by the way. Anyway, so if anybody wants to hop into Verus Discord, go check it out. It's a booming community over there, and a lot of great insights and very knowledgeable people. All righty, that does it for us. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Goodbye.
Have a good day.